Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Behayom. Shabbat Shalom. Maya Behayom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to our congregation this morning. And as we gather together in all of our special places, we try to come together as one. And we do so in our congregation throughout this situation by donning a talit, either a physical one or a metaphoric one, so that we can literally feel the shoulders of each other sat next to one another in congregation. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehitatef batzitzit. And just as we are now sat next to each one, please also sing in harmony with us. If you can't manage harmony, don't worry, nor can I. That's why we're very fortunate to have Ruth in the sanctuary with us this morning to provide that for us. But please make sure that it is in harmony with your voice.
How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. As we say the prayers of our ancestors, help us, O God, to remember their faith and devotion, their joy and suffering, and make us worthy of our heritage.
May the tradition we have received live in us, and pass from us to generations we shall never know, enriched by the truth we have found, and the good we have done. So may we fulfill our task on earth and receive our blessing.
Eternal
God, school us in your teachings and make us loyal to your commandments. It's in the plural, Rabbi Leah, so we can do it together anyway. May we never consent to evil or surrender to temptation or self-contempt. Help us to rise above selfishness and make us responsive to the voice of conscience. Direct our every impulse to your service. Today and every day, may we merit kindness and compassion in your sight, and in the sight of all who behold us. And let us know your love. We praise you, O God, for the love you daily show us.
Ero תהיה כל מחשבות ליבי. Ta-na-nai, nai, 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 nai. Ta-na-nai, nai, 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 nai. Ta-na-nai, nai, 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 nai. Ta-na-nai, 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 nai, nai.
At the dawn, I seek you, my sole refuge, rock and guide. Set my prayer before you in the morning. Worship you at eventide. Baruch Shama v'haya ha'olam. Baruch hu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Hamechulal b'fiamo. Meshubach umfo'ah. Bilshon chasidav va'avadav. Bishvachot uvizmirot negadelecha v'namlichecha. Malkeinu yachid chei ha'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai. Melech mehulal. Batishbachot. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yahalelucha Od Yahalelucha Ashrei
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, שיר ושבחה, הלל וזמרה, ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בשירי זמרה.
Baruchu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vahed.
Praise be the one to whom our praise is due.
We praise the Eternal One, to whom our praise is due forever.
This morning, I continued my holiday tradition of waking at around 5:30 just before the sun rose, and thinking it wasn't really worth going back to sleep. I got up and went down to the allotment. I'd already committed myself to watering this morning anyway, but just to be down there as the sun rose, and to be amongst all that was growing from the ground, the fantastic plants and the overwhelming weeds, all of creation, all there for the green-fingered. And this morning we packed our ark with foliage for the tots to count up to number 10, foliage of chard, of beetroots and of spinach, all growing by the light of the day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uborech osher
shalom uborei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer uborei choshech oseh shalom uborei et hakol oseh shalom uborei et hakol.
We praise you, eternal one, our God, sovereign of the universe, maker of light and creator of darkness, author of peace and creator of all things. In your mercy you give light to the earth and all who live on it, and in your goodness you renew creation continually day by day. How manifold are your works, O God! With wisdom have you made them all. The world is full of your creations. Your handiwork proclaims your praise. The radiant stars bear witness to your glory. We praise you, O God, creator of light.
Baruch atah Adonai yotzer ha'meorot.
We read all together. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching. Make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you, and proclaim your unity. We praise you, O God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Va'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol ma'odecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam. B'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha. U'kshaltam le'ot al yadecha. V'hayu letotafot bein einecha. Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha. Uvish arecha.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Good and beautiful and true, sound established and enduring are these words now and forever. True it is, eternal one, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly, you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha neda b'kodesh. Nora tehilot Hoseh Peleh. Nora tehilot Hoseh Peleh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha neda b'kodesh. Adonai Yimlok leholam ba'ed. Adonai Yimlok leholam ba'ed.
O Rock of Israel,
sustain your people Israel. For you, God of the hosts of heaven, are our Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. We praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open up my lips, that my mouth shall declare your praise. Eternal God, open up my lips, that my mouth shall declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באחווה, מלך חוזה ומשיח ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשני אהבה. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך. מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
We sanctify your name on earth, as in the prophet's vision the hosts of heaven sing your praise above. For so it is written.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech ol haaretz, Kavodo.
God's glory fills the universe.
Baruch Kavod Adonai, Mimakomo.
From your concealment, majestic one, reveal yourself and rule over us, for you are our hope.
Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion, ledovado, Hallelujah.
From generation to generation, we will make known your greatness. To the end of time, we will proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O our God, shall never depart from our lips.
We praise you, Eternal One, the Holy God.
Yismachu b'malchutcha, Yismachu b'malchutcha, Shomerei Shabbat, v'korei honeg, Amekadeshei Shavihi, Amekadeshei Shavihi, Kulam Yispa'u, v'yitanugu mituvecha, V'hashivi ratzita bo, v'kidashto. V'hashivi ratzita bo, v'kidashto. Chemdat yamim, oto karata, zecher l'maaseh, L'maaseh v'reishit.
And we continue together. Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments, and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts that we may serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath. Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. Modim anachnu lach, Shata hu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu le'olam va'ed. Tzur chayenu magen yishenu, ata hu ledor vador. Nodeh lecha u'nesaper tehilatecha, al chayenu hamasurim biyadecha, v'al nishmotenu havakutot lach, v'al nisecha shebechol yom imanu, v'al niflotecha v'tovotecha, Shebechol eitz erev v'voker b'tzoharayim. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'eh lehodot.
Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova u'baracha.
Peace, welfare, and blessing, grace, love, and mercy to us and to all Israel, your people. As a loving parent, bless us with the light of your presence. For by the light of your presence, Eternal God, you have revealed to us the law of life. a love of kindness and righteousness, blessing and mercy, life and peace. For it is good in your sight that your people Israel and all peoples be blessed at all times with your gift of peace. We praise you, O God, the source of peace.
Shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol bnei Adam.
Rabbi Aaron, having made it back onto the bimah, we are back. We're now at our Torah service, Kriyat HaTorah. If you're following in Lev Chadash, it's on page 481.
There is none like you, Eternal One, among the gods people worship, and there are no deeds like yours. Your sovereignty is everlasting. Your reign endures from age to age.
Ein kamocha ve'elim Adonai, ve'en kamasecha. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha b'chol tovado. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imloch leolam vaed. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromamo Shemo yachdav.
Leha Adonai Hagdolah, V'Hagvura, V'Hatiferet, V'Hanetzach, V'Hahod. Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Leha Adonai hamamlecha, v'hamid naseh leho lerosh.
Sorry, Rabbi Leah. The lavender, I think.
The lavender is going to be a risk.
It's lucky that we've got the new scroll this morning and it's not too long. So hopefully we won't have a lavender accident. But,
I'll do my best not to knock the lavender off the bimah. We're also discovering today that we all have to press too many buttons at the same time. So if things are slightly delayed, that's just because we're still getting the hang of everything.
You're too kind. That means that Rabbi Aaron's got it wrong.
Oh, no, I got it wrong too once because I had to close the ark at the same time of pressing a button on the bimah, and that was just more than I was capable with my arms. My arms were not long enough.
What are we reading today, Rabbi Leah?
What are we reading today? Our parasha this week is really a very rich parasha. We had lots of different options. We could have read the 10 Commandments, but we decided not to read the 10 Commandments today because we did read them for Shavuot, and we hope that in the very near future, in November, we'll be able to read them with our Kabbalat Torah class when we hope to do their service, which was postponed because of the beginning of the pandemic, when we weren't quite ready to deal with what we would do instead. But we're reading another famous passage today. We're reading the beginning of the Shema. So it's Deuteronomy chapter 6, starting at verse 4, and we're going to read all the way to verse 18, even though the paragraph finishes with verse 19. But I always like to finish on a positive note and not on the "I shall smash your enemies." So I thought we'll finish on the positive note rather than on a negative note.
You pass all the liberal rabbinate tests with flying
I will
colours.
try. So we'll do the blessing together. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachanu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Rabbi Aaron had to learn all new button pressing for today because we've changed over how our Torah cam works. And I hope that you can see at least a little bit with the Torah cam that we have here, the first line of the Shema with the large enlarged ayin and the enlarged dalet right at the end. The dalet is a bit clearer, I think, than the ayin. So we begin on chapter 6, verse 4. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal One is your God. The Eternal One is one. Is our God even. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha. And you shall love the Eternal One, your God, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. And these words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart. ושיננתם לבניך, and you shall teach them to your children. ודיברת בם, בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך. And you shall speak of them when you're dwelling in your house and when you're walking along the way. ובשוכבך ובקומך, and when you lie down and when you rise up. וקשרתם לעוד על ידך, and you shall bind them as a sign upon your hand. והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, and they shall be a symbol between your eyes. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, and you shall write them upon the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. והיה כי הביאך אדוני אלוהיך אל הארץ, אשר נשבע לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב. And it shall be that when the Eternal One, your God, will bring you to the land which God promised to your ancestors, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, לתת לך ערים גדולות, that you will be given large cities, gdolot utovot, large and very good cities, asher lo banita, which you did not build. Uvatim meleim kol tov, asher lo melita, and houses, filled with everything good, which you did not fill. Uborot chetzuvim, asher lo chatzafta, and hewn cisterns, which you did not hew. Kramim uzetim asher lo natata, and vineyards and olive groves which you did not plant it. V'achalta v'savata, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Hishamer lecha pen tishkach et Adonai asher hotzeticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim. But guard yourself, lest you forget the Eternal One who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. Et Adonai Elohecha tir'ah, and the Eternal One, your God, you shall fear. Ve'oto te'avod, and only God shall you worship. Uvishmo tishava, and only by God's name shall you swear. Lo telechun acharei Elohim acherim, you shall not follow other gods. Melohei ha'amim asher sevivotechem, from amongst the gods of the people amongst whom you're dwelling or that surround you. Ki el kana Adonai Elohecha, for the Eternal One, your God, is a zealous God. Bekarbecha, the Eternal One who is close to you is a zealous God. Pen yechare af Adonai Elohecha becha. So lest you will kindle God, the anger of the Eternal One, your God, v'shishimdecha me'al pnei ha'adama, and that God will expel you from or expunge you from the face of the earth. Lo tnasu et Adonai Elohechem kasher nasitem b'masa. And don't test the Eternal One, your God, as you tested God at Massa. Shamor tishmerun et mitzvot Adonai Elohechem. You shall surely keep the commandments of the Eternal One, your God. Ve'edotav, ve'chukav, and also the testament and the laws, asher tzivacha, which you were commanded. There's some very interesting jumping between first and third person here always. So it's not clear whether the commandments are all addressed to us personally or whether they are addressed to us as a group. Va'asita hayashar v'hatov be'enei Adonai, and you shall do what is good, what is right and good in the eyes of the Eternal One. Lema'an yitaf lecha uvata virishta et haaretz hatova, so that it shall be good with you, and that you shall go in and take possession of this good land, asher nishba Adonai la'avotecha, which the Eternal One, your God, has promised to your ancestors. This is where we are going to stop. Now my phone has decided it's gone to sleep. There we are, we've got the blessings back.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
I think it's a wonderful Torah portion, and it just shows the incredible insight that Moses had, because Moses was able to talk about the cisterns of a city. I'm not sure that they had cisterns in Moses' time, but you never know. He had the vision and the prophecy, obviously, at that moment in time. Having commemorated this past week Tisha B'Av, a moment where we heap all of the disasters which have befallen our people over time onto one day, days which traditionally were about the destructions of the temple, but today has taken new meaning with all of those destructions of our people taken in on one day. Please go back and have a look and discover the lecture which we had this Wednesday, and now be hopefully comforted as well. It's been a long week. There's been a lot of talk again about anti-Semitism, whether it be on social media or in other places. So this special Shabbat called Nachamu, a Sabbath of comfort, is named after the first words of the prophecy of Isaiah. So let us say together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha b'nvi'im tovim, v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'Torah, uv'Moshe avdo, v'Yisrael amo, v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek.
You can zoom in on yourself a bit more.
How on earth do you do that?
Haftarah/sermon.
Oh gosh, there we go. Wow. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. Comfort my people, comfort them, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem, say to her that she has served her term, that her sin is pardoned, for she has received from the hand of the Eternal more than enough punishment for her sins. A voice calls, "Prepare a road for the Eternal through the wilderness. Clear a highway in the desert for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, every mountain and hill made low. The uneven ground shall be made level, the rough places a plain. The Eternal's presence shall be revealed, and united all shall see it. The Eternal One has spoken." A voice rings out, "Announce!" Another asks, "What shall I announce? All flesh is grass, and all its grace like a flower in the field. Grass withers and flowers fade when God's breath blows on them. Yes, the people are grass. Grass withers and flowers fade. But our God's word holds good forever. Ascend a high mountain, O herald of good tidings to Zion. Raise your voice with power, O herald of good tidings to Jerusalem. Speak up without fear. Say to the cities of Judah, "Behold your God." Behold the eternal God coming in might, coming to rule with outstretched arm, bringing divine reward and recompense from on high, like a shepherd tending a flock, gathering the lambs in his arms, carrying them, and gently leading the ewes. Who can measure the oceans in the palm of their hand, or gauge the skies with a span, or put all earth's dust in a bushel, or weigh the mountains in a scale, the hills in a balance? Who can assess the mind of the Eternal, or act as God's advisor? Whom has God consulted? From whom has God taken instruction to learn the path of right? Who has guided God in knowledge, teaching God the way of understanding? Why, the nations are but a drop in the bucket, no more than a dust on a scale. To God, whole islands are but fine dust. All Lebanon could not provide fuel enough, nor are all its beasts enough for burnt offerings. The nations are nothing before God, who considers them as less than nothing. To whom, then, can you liken God? What can you imagine that God compares to? An idol? A metal worker poured it. A smith plated it with gold and forged silver links. As a gift, someone chooses mulberry, a wood that does not rot, then finds a skillful woodworker to make an idol that won't fall down. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Were you not told from the beginning? Have you not grasped how the world began? It is God, enthroned beyond the horizon, to whom we all seem like grasshoppers. It is God who spreads the heavens out like a curtain and stretches them like a tent to live in, bringing princes to naught, making earth's rulers as nothing. Scarcely are they planted, hardly sown. Scarcely has their stem taken root in earth when God blows on them and they wither, and the tempest carries them off like stubble. To whom, then, will you compare me? Who is my equal? Says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high and see who created these stars. The one who leads out their hosts by number, calling them each by name, by whose great might and vast power not one is missing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol haolamim, tzadik b'chol hadurot, ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'oseh, hamdaber umkayem shekol davarav, emet v'tzedek. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al hanvi'im, ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, lechavod u'letifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach u'mvarachim otach, yibarach shimcha b'fi kol chai, tamid le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, makadesh ha-Shabbat.
Eternal God, whose dominion is everlasting, we ask you to bless our sovereign lady, Queen Elizabeth, and to guide the government of this country. Help us to be good citizens, working together for justice and peace at home and abroad. Bless this holy community and all holy communities, and support the life and work of all who labor for their welfare. We ask you to listen to our prayers and look on us kindly, supporting those who are troubled, consoling the bereaved, sending relief to those in pain or anxiety.
As you blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and our mothers Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless our own congregation, all other congregations gathered in prayer, and everyone who responds to the needs of community.
Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessing for the state of Israel and all who live there. Give wisdom and understanding to its leaders, and friendship and compassion to the people, so that there may be lasting peace on its borders and in its homes. Soon may your promise be fulfilled, for Torah shall come out of Zion and the word of God from Jerusalem. May such be the divine will. And let us say,
Amen. Yehalalu et Shem Adonai, kiniskav shemo levado.
Odo aleret v'shamayim be'arim keren le'amo tehillah l'chol hasidav livnei Yisrael am karavo. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Hold my Torah, I give it to you.
Do not forsake it. It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace.
Eitz chaim chile machazikim ba tomechecha meusha. Eitz chaim chile machazikim ba tomechecha meusha. Shalom, 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 shalom. Shalom, 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 shalom. I'd like to say now, please be seated, because I need to sit down. Having done that dance around the sanctuary, I'm so out of breath. My apologies for that Eitz Chaim Chi.
Rabbi Aaron was sprinting around to make sure that he could get to us in time. But he gets to sit down now.
He gets to sit down.
As Rabbi Aaron told us, the Haftarah which we read on this Shabbat after Tisha B'Av begins with the words, Nachamu, 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 Ami. Comfort, O comfort, my people, says the Eternal One. It is the first of 7 Haftarot of consolation, guiding us from this Shabbat to Rosh Hashanah, when we will collectively and individually stand before God and ask for forgiveness. The meaning of the words of the prophet Isaiah are far from easy to understand. Who is to comfort whom? God the people, or the people God? More than a decade ago, my teacher, Rabbi Sheila Schulman of blessed memory, asked me, then a rabbinic student, to write an essay on chapter 16 of Pesichta de Rav Kahane. Pesichta de Rav Kahane is one of the oldest of the homiletic midrashim, containing quasi-sermons on various Torah portions and haftarot, with chapter 16 focusing on this week's haftarah. Sections 1 to 8 and 10 to 11 deal with God's comforting of Israel, each section exploring different aspects of God's comfort. Section 9, however, stands out from the other sections, with the darshan, the preacher, troubled by the reading of the text that God's people must be comforted for the destruction of Jerusalem. Instead, the authors of the Pesichta were likely all male, suggests it is God who asks for comfort. The motif that God weeps for humanity is found elsewhere in our tradition. Jeremiah describes God wailing for the people of Moab. 2 times the Talmud speaks of God weeping. In Chagigah 5:8, our rabbis taught, over 3 the Holy Blessed One weeps every day. Over them who is able to occupy themselves with the study of the Torah and does not, and over them who is unable to occupy themselves with the study of the Torah and does, and over a leader who domineers over the community. God cries because of us. If we fail to connect with God through studying Torah, even though we have the capability, God cries. I imagine tears of sadness. If we succeed in connecting through Torah, overcoming obstacles in order to do so, God cries. I imagine tears of happiness. If we are the victims of a narcissistic, domineering leader who cares not for our welfare, God cries. Further in Brachot, God cries over our suffering and lets 2 tears fall into the ocean, creating a rumbling sound heard all over the world. God cries over our misfortune, our suffering, our lack of reaching out, our failure to form deeper connections with the divine, and therefore with each other. The post-Holocaust theologian Eliezer Berkowitz adopts this image of the weeping God during the Holocaust. Maybe it is this image of the weeping God that the preacher of the Pesichta has in mind when he suggests that God is in need of comfort. In the first sections of the Midrash, the preacher is asking the same question again and again. In the face of the destruction of Jerusalem and the exiling of the people, who needs to be comforted? Using different analogies, each time he comes to the same conclusion. Surely it is God who needs to be comforted, not the people. Indeed, if the Midrash only consisted of these 3 analogies, one would probably ask whether the preacher got confused about the day for which he was giving a sermon. After all, Shabbat Nachamu and its Haftarah are meant to bring comfort to the people after marking the destruction of the temple on Tisha B'Av. The prayer's conclusion that God and not the people needs comforting does not really succeed in this task. However, it certainly grabs the attention of the listener to focus on the final section. The final part of the Midrash takes a different twist. The preacher suggests here that God has to take responsibility for the behavior of the people that leads to the punishment of destruction and exile. Finally, we detect some ambivalence in the preacher's attitude to the question if God is really the one who deserves comforting. Referencing the discussion between Moses and God at Sinai, the preacher reminds us that the people are God's people, even when they sin. God is the owner and carer of the people, but God also punishes them. Nonetheless, the preacher suggests God is suffering with the people and requires comfort. In the end, the preacher seeks to reconcile his listeners. You are suffering and you feel abandoned and exile, but God is suffering with you. Be comforted, for even God needs to be comforted. Maybe this too is part of our covenantal relationship with God, that we suffer together and seek comfort from each other. And just like we ask God not to give up on us, God asks us not to give up on her. I think most of us feel a need at the moment for a little comfort as we look at the future with uncertainty and fear. And maybe, just maybe, the same is true for God. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. Maybe the message of Shabbat Nachamu is to remind us never to be embarrassed by our tears. For if even God joins us in shedding tears, what can be more sacred? The liturgist Alden Soloway captures this sentiment beautifully in his prayers, Tears Too Close, a prayer of consolation. So let me quote here just a small section of his prayer. These tears are too close to my eyes, ready to burst forth. For the sorrow that surrounds us, these tears are too close to my heart, ready to burst forth for the pain that surrounds us. These tears are too close to my soul, ready to burst forth for the heartbreak that surrounds us. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, Yoma Elohechem, Ki nicham Adonai Tzion. Comfort, comfort my people, says your God, for God will comfort Zion. Well of compassion, comfort of generations, let us cry together for all that has been lost and all that might have been. And as we acknowledge the power of shedding tears together, let us find strength and hope in the words of the psalmist, reminding us that those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Ken Yehi Ratzon, for this is surely God's will. Amen.
Who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Let us move to our concluding prayers and read together. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, latet gedula liotze bereshit, asher sam chelkeinu liached et shemo, v'goraleinu lahamlich malchuto.
ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומעטים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד.
And it has been said, the eternal God shall rule over all the earth. On that day the eternal God shall be one and known to be one.
B'chaya Adonai, lamelech Adonai echad, Yehyeh Adonai echad, U'shemo echad.
It is hard to feel serene when our world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone. Yet in the emptiness their passing leaves behind, we are not alone, for we have the companionship of the living, and even our loved ones who have died live on in our hearts. For what they were is part of what we have become. We honor them best when we live as they would wish, responsibly and happily, even in the shadow of our loss, and so draw closer to the source of life, in whom every life finds meaning, purpose, and hope. And on this Shabbat, we think of the yardsides of Hoda Ellis, the mother of Hilton, and Sylvia Morris, the sister of Neville Price. Zichronam livracha. May their memory be a source of blessing to us always, as we recite together.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'a v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'tada v'taleh v'talal shemei dekudesha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran balma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mroma, u'yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei adam, v'imru amen. Before we conclude our service and welcome you to come into our Kiddush Zoom room to be together with us, I need to remind myself, having been away for a few days, have we got anything special going on this week?
I think what we definitely need to remind people is that we are still looking for contributors to our animal service. So if you are interested in participating in our animal service with your pet, ideally, you don't have to record a video necessarily. You can just send in a photo of yourself with your pet. I think we're going to just hijack the email address that we had for our nature service. So just if you email nature@npls.org.uk, then we'll receive those images. And we have some fabulous images from Ruth from Whipsnade of lots of wild animals as well. So
and
it's really wonderful.
If you fancy singing a song about an animal or anything else like that as well, you're welcome. And for inspiration, please do go and see last night's incredible nature service. It really was remarkable, taking in all of the corners of the planet. And with Gerald Henstead in the Kiddush room, even the universe,
the universe
as well.
Exactly.
And just at the end of this next week as well, next Kabbalat Shabbat, we're going to be getting on our transporter and visiting the community in Nottingham, led by Rabbi Tanya Sachnovich. So do join us for that as well. But for now, let us conclude by singing together. Adon Olam, Hashem Allah, B'terem kol, Letzin Ibrah, Yitnasa, B'chetzo kol, Asai Melech, Shemoni Kra, V'acharei, Kichlot אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, גאון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, יהיה נשא בחסד כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, בתפארה, והוא היה והוא הווה, בתפארה, והוא היה והוא הווה, בתפארה. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and see you in our Zoom room in a moment.